right, let's call a financial property meeting to order at 4:45 on Tuesday, November 12th. I'll introduce myself, Shane Blazer. I'm acting chairman. Steve Koth is absent tonight, and he has
Scott Kellogg,
sitting in for him. How about we go around the table first?
Tim DeSorcy, Finance.
Joe Cherry, Director of Public Works.
Andy Raddick, Community Media.
Tyler Mickelson, IT.
Paul?
Paul Voller, Public Works Superintendent.
Ryan Gieford, Wastewater Superintendent.
Yep.
Adam Estes, Wisconsin Rapids Area Convention and Visitor Bureau current president.
Meredith Klecker, Executive Director, Wisconsin Rapids Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
All right, thank you for coming. We'll start with the Convention and Visitors Bureau first. They have a presentation,
Oh, geez.
and the
Okay.
floor is yours.
Okay. Did you know that on November 2nd, we had 10,063 fans here for the WIAA State Cross Country Meet? That's just fans. That's not athletes. That's not the 400 volunteers that make it happen. That's just fans. And those fans made an economic impact of $640,000 in our community. So I am Meredith Klecker, and I'm here to talk to you about the state. We are here to talk to you about the state of tourism in the Wisconsin Rapids area. So we'll start with a little bit about who we are, and you can start it whenever you want.
Oh.
Hold on, IT guy.
That's okay. We'll talk a little bit about who we are. Our mission is to promote the Wisconsin Rapids area as a business and leisure destination, resulting in economic prosperity for all. From the inception of the room tax ordinance for Wisconsin Rapids, we have been recognized as a room tax entity. We are a not-for-profit organization that was incorporated in 2001.
Let me catch up.
Okay, keep going.
Alright, yep, okay.
Get there.
Oh,
At
there
least
we go.
75% of the revenues of our revenues are spent on tourism promotion and tourism development. We also have a full-time staff of 2 people and an intern through the high school. We are governed by a dedicated board of directors, volunteer directors. We currently have 11 directors. 2 work with lodging facilities within the municipality of Wisconsin Rapids. 5 are engaged in retail or entertainment or hospitality. 2 work in municipal government or services. 1 works for a local nonprofit organization, and 1 is a professional services member. We meet all of the requirements. Actually, we exceed the requirements. The Wisconsin State Statute 66.01. It's listed in your presentation. We meet or exceed all of the criteria to be a tourism entity. So what we did for that state cross-country meet is we worked to track them. We worked to investigate, to find out what's available. We worked to bring groups in, whether it's sports, recreation, whether it's just leisure travelers, whether it's tour groups, whether it's conventions or meetings. That's what we do. Our focus is on marketing to bring people from the outside in. So citizens of our community are not always aware of what we do because our focus is outside. So we welcome the opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit about it. So some of the things about some of our expenditures are on this page. We are a full voting member of Destinations Wisconsin, formerly the Wisconsin Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus. And that means that we devote no less than 75% of our budget to tourism development and tourism promotion. I mentioned some of the areas that we spend dollars in. Sports, both athletics, that includes natural resources too, things like Gravatt and Raw, right across Wisconsin, some of those things, the ATV, it includes those. Conventions and meetings, an example recently is the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Board of Aeronautics was here for the Airport Operations and Land Use meeting. We're fortunate enough to have the American Public Works Association next in 2020. Those are some examples of conventions and meetings, some off the wall, well not off the wall, but unusual ones. Dairy State Steel Guitar comes in once a year and brings steel guitar players from all over the Midwest. Those are some examples of those. Leisure and tours, examples of that include Circle Wisconsin, which we advertise in Circle Wisconsin. It is a bus tour magazine. and we co-op with the Central Wisconsin Tourism Association. We had a group who really wanted to come in on a Monday and find a restaurant that would be open, so we worked we worked with Great Expectations to see if they would be open so that the busload of folks could have a great farm-to-table meal. So that's just a small example of some of the conventions and meetings. We pretty much listen to what they're looking for and try to meet those needs. So that's our expenditures. Partnerships are extremely important to us. We initiated and facilitated the Wisconsin Rapids Sports Commission. Actually, the Sports Commission is meeting right now at the same time. The Sports Commission is a forum for leaders in the athletic community to promote the Wisconsin Rapids area as a sports destination. The Sports Commission works to connect people and resources and provide opportunities to capitalize on our natural assets and our valued recreation facilities. We're very fortunate. We have lots of assets in this area, and we're very fortunate. We also work with, I mentioned, fellow destination management organizations, or CVBs, in the area. Examples are Travel Wisconsin. We're a Travel Wisconsin or State Department of Tourism partner. We help promote within the state, and we take advantage of some of the cooperative marketing opportunities that they offer. We are a member of the Central Wisconsin Tourism Association, and with that organization, we advertise in Circle Wisconsin. We also attend the state fair. We are the only tourism entity other than the state that has a booth at the state fair for all 11 days. And we promote our area and visiting to Marshfield, Stevens Point, or Wisconsin Rapids area for the entire time there were hundreds of thousands that attended state fair this year. We're also members of the North Central ITBEC. I'm not sure, International Trade and Business.
Economic Development Council.
Thank you. We're on the marketing committee. So with that organization, we do trade shows. So Milwaukee Journal Sports Show is an example. This year we'll be doing one in Rockford. There's one in Chicago. So that we're working to target an audience of visitors to come to this area. So those are all very important to us, and as well as our local partners. We don't do this in a vacuum. So all of our local businesses are extremely important to us. The work that Public Works does for us is very important because that lets residents and visitors, it welcomes visitors and lets residents know that we're here and that there's groups coming in and to be ready. So we work very hard to communicate and help everybody know that there's groups coming in and we're going to take really good care of them. Once they've come, we want to follow up with them, find out how the experience was, and we're always working. For example, WIAA has been coming for years, but we did some different things this year to make it easier for them to book with our lodging properties. Visitors sometimes get confused about what's Wisconsin Rapids because Plover is kind of close. So we did some things. We made it easy. We linked our direct links with our properties so that they could book with our properties this year to make it a little easier for them to stay here and have a good experience. So that's some of our partnerships. Some of the decisions that we've made that have an impact. A few years ago, we listened to the discussion about the importance of revitalizing downtown Wisconsin Rapids. So we chose to assist in renovating and renting the entire first floor of the historic Ham building on the east side of the river. Our offices, the Wisconsin Rapids Area Convention Visitors Bureau, or our Visitors Center, is off of the 2nd Street side. And the shared retail space, the entire 1st Street side, is shared between Local on 1st and Aaron's Wines and Steins, and that's off the 1st Street side. We're actually fine, and there's visitor information on both sides. We're actually fine whichever way they come in. We just want them to visit, and they do. Local on 1st, I'll talk about that a little bit. Local on 1st is a branch of the CVB, and it was created to provide an opportunity for visitors to take a memento home. That was really cool. That might inspire other people to come and visit. So it meets that purpose. It also provides an opportunity for local artisans and independent business owners to have a place to consign or sell their items. So everything in Local on 1st is locally produced or locally branded, and we have we're very fortunate in this community. Everything from metal art to honey and goat's milk soap and cranberry seed oil products and things that are knit and handmade. We're very fortunate. We have very talented people in this community. And then the third point of Local on First is that all those dollars stay circulating in our community, as opposed to people going to a nearby community or driving to Madison or the Dells to spend their money. We're getting them to spend some money in our community, so the tax dollars stay in this community. Both the CVB and Local on First are active members of the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. We serve on several committees. Some examples include the Wood County Economic Development Roundtable, the Wisconsin Rapids Downtown Steering Committee, the Cranberry Blossom Festival Committee. We're on the advisory board for the Mid-State Hospitality Program, and we achieved and continue to have the first marketing program youth apprenticeship program student in the state. She actually graduated, went to college, so, but we continue to work with the school on that program as well. We also have been working with the city on some things, collaboration and also wayfinding. And we remain committed to working with all of our municipalities and our partners and communicating clearly in that regard. Our current projects. One of the things we're working on is not glamorous, but it's functional. So we're working on a customer relations management or our content resource management system. We've invested in that. It is done with a company that specializes in DMOs, destination management organizations, or CVBs. And it's gonna help us streamline and manage data to be able to maximize our time. Since we are small but mighty, we wanna take advantage to be able to be out there promoting, researching visitor groups and bringing them in. We also are working to help the Cranberry Blossom Festival return to its status as an independent organization, whether it's the Cranberry Blossom Festival or a festival of some kind, but we are working on that to free up some time to be able to devote to bringing people from the outside in to take advantage of our great resources. We're working on a destination assessment process with Travel Wisconsin, again, the State Department of Tourism. That's going to probably take a while. It involves surveys that we'll be sending out probably to all of you, as well as surveying some of our visitors that come to town to find out what do people like, what's working, what's not working, how do people see the Wisconsin Rapids area, and that they walk us through a process that provides us with some guidance for our future as a destination. And along with that, the board is working on a strategic planning process for the next 3 to 5 years to develop a long-term plan, vision and mission to make and brand the Wisconsin Rapids area as a premier destination. So that's a little bit in a nutshell. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say it, and we'll entertain any questions.
Anybody? Anybody else have any?
I've been fortunate to be on the board, so I understand all the hard work that Meredith is doing and Adam with the team. So I mean, it just surfaces. It's hard to really have a question. It's just more of a compliment. They do really a good job. So
Thank you.
And I'll concur. I think it's an organization that deserves a lot of credit, and whatever, whether we have a discussion in the future, but I'd like to see that strengthened, just because of the role that you perform in the city and for the city. It just benefits all businesses and hotels, and obviously our hotels that are filled brings in more revenue for doing other things. So I think that's very important.
and I look at it too. We talk about building businesses, or more like we have Metallico and others, but when people visit the city through the CVB and see all the things that the city offers, then all of a sudden someone might say, oh, it's a great place to move to, or it's a great place to have a company or a branch or something of their company. So it's building that economy.
I agree. Any other questions? Comments?
No.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
I wish Jake was here, because I think he's the one that had questions last time that he didn't really understand.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give him one of these though, with a PowerPoint. I'll have that put in this.
You can always.
You can
No,
always,
box
yeah,
you,
I'm happy to answer any questions anytime.
No, I think he just just didn't have experience and understand what you did.
There's always some confusion between us and the chamber and the roles, and Meredith works with the chamber a lot on a lot of events, but the communication's really there to make sure what we're doing is helping what they're doing and vice versa. So,
They do
especially recently with both of us getting new executive directors around the same time, they've been able to form this really good relationship.
I definitely
communication-wise.
believe that you are two different organizations with different functions. So
We both work for economic development, but the way we do it is a little bit different. Our focus is on bringing the outside in, and they're working on helping businesses that are here grow and bring more in too, but.
I definitely think there's a distinct difference. No, thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Maybe, get PowerPoint.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You guys are pretty lazy, you don't need that.
Okay.
Endure the rest if you don't want it.
Let's stay.
You are?
Can I listen? I can-
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's wide open.
You don't have to.
Oh, I'm,
We were
I'm
not
here
offended
already,
if you,
so-
get up and leave during the meeting.
okay, thank you.
All right, why don't, Ryan's gotta get on the road, so why don't
Yeah,
we-
so I'll just do a brief introduction. So we're gonna just review just a general overview of the wastewater budget, some of the priorities that we're proposing for 2020. And if we want to get into the weeds with any specifics, we'd be glad to engage in that. But I thought it probably more beneficial to talk a little bit about the, what we're proposing initiatives, general operational items, and then any changes. So, Ryan, if you want to walk through some of that.
Yeah, did you guys have a chance to review any of it yet? The main operational stuff that I budgeted for remains pretty unchanged from last year. There's a few small adjustments, mostly for things that, like our permit change this year from the DNR. We have more testing parameters that we need to test for, so we had to increase our laboratory budget slightly. Really not a lot of changes in the day-to-day operations, and the revenue as well, which I believe was sent out, is largely unchanged. We're getting about as much revenue as we're budgeting for each year, so we are fairly sustainable at this point. The high-level things I wanted to talk about is in the outlay, capital outlay, and they're mostly equipment replacements or updates that we're looking to do just to try to remain sustainable. We have some aging infrastructure in the collection system. Dewey lift station, it's our second largest lift station. I've got 44.5 budgeted to replace the MCC and main control panel. The electrical components in that station are aging. I think they're from the 60s or 70s.
Is that the lift station in Demons Park?
Yes, yep. That one is in need of some definite upgrades. We've added some new pumps, we've added some bypass piping, but the electrical components are in need of replacement at this time. So to stay ahead of that lift, with it being so large, I want to put some money into it. I did budget last year, and that's that 285 number to do a solids pad covering for our Class A EQ solids out in the west side. I'd still like to do that. I was not able to do it this year, simply didn't have the time, but I did get a quote. I think it's important that we consider doing that, because right now, we're making this exceptional quality Class A product. We want to make it marketable. We want to sell it eventually. With all the rain that pad sees, we're just not getting a nice dry product that people want to come and put in a trailer and put on their gardens. I think we need to cover it, get it out of the rain. When we take a compost turner, we turn it, it gets dry, it rains an inch, and it's wet again. So I really think if we want to continue down that EQ Class A path, we need to consider building a structure out there to cover it and make it easier for residents, or even if farmers or anybody wants to come and buy a little bit of it, they can. So that's that large outlay number there, which is carried over from last year. I want to do some more bypass piping. On July 6th, when we had the whole city go black, we had crews working around the clock for 4 days, pulling generators around the lift stations. We've identified some stations that if we do some bypass piping, we can take mobile pumps, park them there, and just leave them. That way we're not having to run around to as many of them. So that 26,490 was quotes from Haza Mechanical to do some piping modifications that our other largest lifts, 2 Mile by the airport, Dewey needs some more piping adjustments, and then Pepper lift station right by the plant there. The other item there, Whitrock, we want to add some variable frequency drives to the Whitrock lift station. Right now they're on floats, and 8th Street has expanded enough over the years to where that station's seeing more flow than it should. And if we can add some VFDs to those pumps, they won't be cycling as often, the pumps will last longer, they'll be more energy efficient. So spend a little money to upgrade Whitrock as well. So those are kind of the big projects I want to do next year, mostly focused on the collection system and the Class A biosolids. Are there any other questions that anybody has on anything we're doing? That's kind of all I have. Is there anything I missed?
I don't think so. You know, we do incorporate a number of wastewater projects into our public works construction, and Ryan helps identify those project needs. And so we're looking at really the last several years and moving into the future, looking at a mix of full-blown replacement projects as well as some sanitary sewer lining projects where we don't have to do a full excavation if it's not required. If the water utility, stormwater utility, those needs aren't there, and that pipe is otherwise still maintaining line and grade, you know, we can use some other methods that are cost effective and really keeps our workload in check. You know, we don't have capacity to significantly increase our major construction projects at this time, and so those methods worked well. And I think it's also worth noting that the utility, through the budget process this last year, has upgraded its televising equipment, and Ryan and his department have really audited those processes and held staff and the utility accountable. We're getting more work done, in part because we've got better equipment, in part because we're better organized. But as we televise more, you know, we're discovering we've got an aging infrastructure system here in the city, and you know, and with this combined effort of both replacement and rehabilitation, you know, really moving forward to long-term sustainability. And I feel really proud of where the wastewater department has been. And I think you all heard it earlier, but I also want to put a plug in this year. Ryan, and it's beyond, you know, on behalf of him, his excellent work and the team that he has, was nominated and received the award for top operator in the state of Wisconsin. So it's a real feather in our hat as a community. So congratulations. That's good.
So I think that's probably about it.
Staffing, we're all good out there?
Yeah, really no concerns. We've been, for 2 years now, we've been hiring an intern from UWSP. That's been really successful. So I'm gonna try to do that again. We may wanna look at possibly paying them a little bit more, which I don't know if it's required. The last 2 years, the best candidates turned us down for cities that pay more, but usually there's a handful of good candidates, so.
How much are you paying now?
$12 an hour.
And what is kind of the going rate, or?
You know, I think at Point we paid 15. You know, I think Marshfield's around 15. Anywhere from 10 to 18.
How many hours do they put in?
So from the end of the semester till the start of the semester, they do 40 hours a week. So usually for 12 to 14 weeks, 40 hours a week. And actually, this year we kept them on 1 day a week this fall to help because we were short a collection staff man. So he's been able to stay on 1 day a week too, which has really been helpful.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate, Joe, if you need to bring that back and if we need to bump that up to make sure we're attracting people.
I mean, if you get the best candidate,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
well worth the price.
Yeah,
Or
I
a
mean,
few
it's
dollars more an hour.
It's
yeah.
a relatively
It's
low
a short term.
cost, yeah.
It is, and you know, the utility is self-funded.
Right.
Tim can explain a little more about moving it to an enterprise fund, but the utility is self-funded, And, we do annually review our rate structure to make sure that we are sustainable. 2 years ago, we did a major rate review. And with that, we included setting funds aside for the replacement. So we already have a depreciation fund for the new infrastructure that we're putting in. But there's a lot of old infrastructure that we don't have funds to set aside for. So our rate structure right now also includes setting funds aside for replacement of that aging infrastructure as well. So, we are sustainable, and because it's a utility, we have the ability to make small adjustments like that a lot easier than we do at the general fund city level with some of the limitations we have from the state. So we can certainly take a look at it.
Yeah, don't hesitate, because might as well try to track the best.
Yeah, very, very helpful for us and for a low cost.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Want to do Park and Rec right away, or?
Sure. So parks, kind of like a lot of the other public works and wastewater, we are not proposing a whole lot for changes, with the exception of our aquatic center. That's obviously a big change. But our general operations, we're moving a few things from here to there. The one thing we did add is in our other green areas, we do have an increase there, and that's because we have more landscaping and downtown plantings and things like that. And we did have to make an adjustment there to be able to maintain those and keep them in good shape as we would expect to.
That's incidental labor?
That's another, right, in the other green areas portion.
Okay. Previously, you mentioned about getting bids for what it would cost to do that, and I think you said around 50.
Right.
So is that kind of used for your budgetary lines for this incidental labor?
It
line?
is, it's
Okay.
worked in, yes. We do have, like Witterfield, for example, there's a decrease there. That decrease is because in accordance with the contract that the city has, the team is responsible for taking care of the mowing of the actual baseball field. And the city's been doing that in the past and really shouldn't have been. And so that's been reduced. We're reallocating that, elsewhere, including part of the other green areas. Mead Field, you'll see about a $24,000 increase there. Those aren't new dollars. What we used to have our splash pad budgeted through aquatics, and we've moved that. It's really a spray playground. It's part of Mead Field, and so that portion has been changed, but it's just it's a paper trail type change. We're not planning anything major for our bike trails, but we do have some maintenance and repair that needs to happen there. So we've got a small, modest $2,000 increase there.
How about for, I guess, the issues of tree plantings and Robinson, any further?
Yes,
Anything
so
on that?
we have been successful in obtaining an $8,000 grant from the DNR for tree replacement. And when I made that application on behalf of the city, the focus is just tree replacement. So we'll also be receiving funds from FEMA to apply back towards our regular activities. We do have some additional dollars, an additional $5,000 in our tree care budget. And we also, I believe, I don't know for sure, is there a $10,000 private donation that came into the city that I
heard about it. I don't know if we
Yeah.
got CD. I know someone was inquiring they wanted.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's formally been a contribution yet, but another donation to aid in reforestation. So we do have some funds available for that, and we're working with the Parks Commission to develop a master plan for Robinson Park. And urban tree development is a major part of that.
Weren't you thinking at one time having, like I said, use our own nursery type, I mean?
Yes, so that concept hasn't gone away.
Okay, I was.
We've just had so many significant projects that we haven't been able, in order to establish that, it's gonna take a little bit of time and effort and care, is to develop a bare root
Long-term.
nursery.
Yeah.
Basically for the trees to be planted bare root in the spring in this gravel bed nursery. And in that growing season, they generally do very well if they're cared for. The root structure improves dramatically. So that is still, it's on the back
I
burner.
think
on
that's a
summer.
great idea. So, yeah, I understand all the
Yeah.
problems we've had this year with the weather and, storm and stuff, but in the future, I think it's good.
Right. And with that budget also includes, we are in the process of treating and dealing with emerald ash borer.
Yeah.
And we do anticipate at some point we'll have to improve our compost site to develop a wood area. When it gets bad enough where there's a lot of material coming in, and it will.
And going back to bike paths we just talked about, since there's so many, do we have enough personnel, equipment? I mean, there's more bike paths, right, on the river and so forth. Is that, you feel comfortable with that?
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, some of it is that, the stuff in Devon's Park last year was completed. We didn't do everything in Devon's Park just because some of it, strictly because of the slope and the use of it in the winter months isn't necessarily gonna happen. So some of it, we aren't maintaining it in the winter months, 100%. The other areas, really are no different than what we've done. We simply took 5-foot walks that used to be sidewalks that are now 8-foot trails. So for the most part, the only area that is different is the area along First Street, from Mead Island to the Elks Club where there wasn't a trail there before. And we were able to accommodate that fairly well.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily that taken care under this budget, that's more of the street department, snow plowing.
Snow and ice
budget.
control. So we are cognizant that our multi-use trail system is aging. And, we do continually review that and anticipate what sections we're going to do some crack filling or do some repair on. So that is part of our review process. And at some point, we'll have to focus a little more on those facilities and doing some upgrades. But for now, I'm comfortable with where we're at.
So, as you know, as a Public Works meeting, they requested that we put 2 additional personnel on at the street department. Any further discussions on that internally, or?
So.
I know Tim with the budget probably thinking, but.
Yeah,
There
I
is a-
mean,
there is a
Paul and
council.
I think that's premature.
Okay.
Paul and I have been working on really long-range structure for the Public Works Department. There's some areas where we need some improvement. There may be some staffing changes that need to happen with that, but I'm not ready to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I think bulk of the concern was your statements about, we don't have enough to maintain what we have and I have to let it go. And I think that's what precipitated the response of, well, then let's get some more people in.
So this budget does include an additional limited term employee for for groundskeeping, landscaping, those types of activities. That is included in the budget already.
Okay.
There is not any new equipment included in the budget. If there's a desire to start or go back to mowing some of the steep banks, we currently don't have equipment that's safe to do that in a way that will make it look decent. I mean, we could work with the Wood County system in Huber and have people come and string trim it.
And I don't think we need to go that far, like, and Scott mentioned earlier, that, I think some resolution to that hill can come about other than mowing. And I keep saying that my issue with it is, if it looks neglected, something needs to be done.
Sure.
And to me, if a visitor's traveling through our community, look at it, all you see is grass that hasn't been mowed. We had, and I'm sure it's gonna cost money down the road at some point, but there's something obviously we can do with the hill that's low maintenance, other than grass, or I'm sure it's a project that.
Yeah, I mean,
I would
prairie
support down the
restoration,
road.
butterfly gardens, there's a number of
Yeah,
things that we can
rock
do
garden,
in
whatever.
components to turn that into something special.
Yeah, and it'd be a nice, something more eye-catching than long grass, and that's been my issue the whole time.
Sure.
Every time we've discussed it, I just think it looks neglected. And driving by today, the top and the bottom are all nicely mowed, and you have this patch of neglected grass, and, I'd just like to see at some point a discussion start happening of some alternative to just grass there.
I think there's some interested parties and.
Yeah, I
Making
even
a
envision like
butterfly
rocks that
type
say
of- bit of
City
a
of
plan.
Wisconsin Rapids on it or something, or.
I think if you do something like that, like the prairie grass or butterfly, the thing is you have to put signage.
Right.
So when people drive by, they know,
They-
oh, that's a butterfly habitat.
Right.
It's not
Intended
just
to be
a
that way.
overgrown field,
Right.
and that's the.
If it's prairie and then a hillside of something, as long as it doesn't look neglected, that's my issue.
Sure. We can put a border in that's defined.
Yeah, look
Yeah,
at it,
something
a
defines-
plan. You got,
Right.
like if you had prairie up on top, and when I go past Nakusa, they have grass with these tassels in the wind that blow and so forth. If you have that in front, and then the prairie on top, that you wouldn't see the prairie, or, I think the issue that surfaced with the prairie grass, it can be a win-win.
Absolutely.
There's places where we can have it, and there's places that are more traffic, and it might be a problem, and it's just a matter of creating a long-term plan
Right.
versus yes or no.
Right.
Yeah, I
You know,
think
and those.
Yes.
instead of how we can't
Yeah.
mow the hill, let's see if we can focus on some other options that we
Yeah.
can do there other than have it, in my opinion, look unsightly.
Right.
So,
Well, and that was the process, not to get off topic, but that was what started everything, the, I can't tell you their names, I'm sorry, just looked like. But they just, we started in, that 100-foot by 100-foot area, because you didn't wanna do the whole 7 acres, and then, number one, there was no funds available to do anything, and number two, is it gonna work, with the funds that they have?
Prairies are very hard to
And
grow.
so,
very
um,
hard.
It, like I said earlier, it didn't happen the way that it should have happened, and so that's why we have what we have, but.
And maybe some of my issue is I don't know if it was communicated very well, because as I said, not that we need to approve it, but through that discussion of approving something, I think it protects the piece, that, it's got the support of the city on it. But yeah, I just think there was a lot of lack of communication there, where if we had better communication about what was going on there, that maybe there'd be less questions now, or, what the plan might be or the thoughts are. Other than, I'd say it again, a neglected hill. And,
But back to your point, we'd be more than happy to take 2 individuals.
Absolutely,
Right
Art,
out there.
but if there is a need for it, I can't speak for the council, but if there's a need, we need to fill that need. So because if we
So-
can't get things done, then we need to figure out a way to get them done. Because I'm a big fan of, and I've said this over and over, if we're gonna do something, let's maintain it. And to me, not maintaining something else to maintain something new doesn't seem to solve the problem. Because we're always the next new thing, we're gonna have to not maintain something else. And so if we're gonna do a project, let's have the staff to maintain it or not do the project.
I can say that, in the parks areas, yeah, there are some wants there, and a lot of it does depend on, the expectations of the community. We do try to, just knowing the budget constraints and knowing what limitations that the city does have, and recognizing that there are other departments in the city. We were tasked to present a budget that was really a status quo, that there's not room for major change. You know, that said, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can improve on and become more sustainable. But I think if we work it through the finance director, what we're gonna find is, well, that means some other department's gonna be compromised, or something else within the same department's gonna be compromised. Unless we can discover some new resources, new funding resources. It's really, it's easy. I mean, we could sit down and I could justify
Oh, absolutely.
probably 2 or more staff to really excel in some areas. But I also know that the police department has needs, and the fire department has needs, and the finance department has needs. And, you know, looking at it as a perspective of, you know, the city as a whole.
But when we're spending multi-million dollars and committing the taxpayers to a 20-year note, I think it needs to be more of a priority than,
Sure.
because we are, especially, you know, now an additional potentially $8 to $9 million total for the aquatic center. You know, we're making a significant investment in that. I think we have to make sure that that area is at least maintained and other areas aren't getting shorted because of that. And
Yeah, I think
I just want to make sure that
yes, with
you're
the
staffed
aquatics
correctly.
facility,
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with what we have budgeted there. The biggest challenge over the next 6 months is going to be the operational structure, the knowledge and experience that staff needs to have to operate a facility like that isn't likely to come from a summer help person, right? And it's gonna require either someone who's already full-time, and somehow someone else is gonna replace some of those activities, whether it's part-time or whatever. That's the challenge that we have right now. And I will say that we're looking at a number of alternatives. One of which is potentially collaborating. The YMCA is looking to recruit someone with a lot of experience in operation and programming in aquatics, someone actually with a degree in that. And they may or may not be able to justify a salary for that person or have the workload for that person for the whole year. And that a collaboration between the city and the Y for someone like that, you know, that might fit well. So
That'd be
so
good
we're
to see,
still, so I don't have a plan for you tonight for that, but we are working diligently to develop it.
Well, it seems like, or through the discussions, you know, there's a lot of reliance on the concession stand, and we haven't, you know, how is that formulated in somewhere yet, or is
It
those
is.
discussions need to be discussed yet, or?
So we've
How is that gonna be?
we've incorporated concession revenues and concession expenses, you know, into the budget. That said, there are a number of ways to operate a concession stand. We may rent it out and have a third party operate it. We may operate it ourselves. What we have budgeted for is for a concessions manager, and that we run it ourselves. But that's not to say that that's how it has to be. I do think the budget that we have is somewhat reflective, and there are a lot of unknowns because of the size of the facility. But we have compared what we're building now to what other municipalities have. And I've also done some research to see what is our median household income here and in the surrounding areas for those that are going to be using the facility compared to those other municipal facilities, to try to develop appropriate rate structures. That will be a referral that will be at this meeting for December. I'm finalizing those things right now because we're getting calls from grandparents that want to buy season passes for the
Christmas,
grandkids
yeah.
for his Christmas presents.
I
You
can
know,
see
so
that.
we want to try to be prepared to facilitate that.
So you brought up something I hadn't heard before, a concessions manager. So is that through seasonal employee or?
Could be, you know, an LTE that.
Or a task assigned to a person already here, or probably not, that's.
Yeah, I think perhaps some of the some of the logistics might be task assigned, maybe some of the procurement of supplies, things like that. But it's not out of the realm of possibility to have a college student, a summer part-time help,
Especially in hospitality industry or something.
right, run the concessions. That's not out of the question at all.
Yeah, makes sense. Part-time.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Do you have any questions?
No.
No. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Yeah, don't hesitate if you need to look at an employee though.
No,
I know Public Works is probably gonna be asking about it and
yeah, and
staying
so
on top of it, because that's
no,
your committee, but.
so we do have a policy for that procedure that the city has, and
But if
you
you're
know,
finding that you can't maintain what you have, then at that point, I think we need to look at potentially picking up a labor person or something along that line.
yeah,
I'd
no, I
rather see that
I think there's
than
some
not maintain something.
there's some structural things within our Parks and Public Works, Public Works work
Yeah.
group that we're looking at improving,
Yep.
because we have to.
I think that's a good idea because what I know of, the structure and through communications that, I think it's something necessary, and for Paul's sanity too, maybe it may be necessary and his workload.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're about 60% way through that.
Oh, perfect.
The desire was to get it done for you when we did our public works last Tuesday, but obviously it wasn't the right place for it. But yeah, there's been multiple conversations about future structure and everything like that, and what it's going to look like and stuff. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
well
just
on our way, but it's just not there yet.
let me know, we'll get on HR too. And I don't know if it's HR or finance first, but I would think probably HR, but.
I think it's HR first. Yeah.
Just let me know when we get it on there and we'll start wrestling with that.
You bet.
Questions, anybody?
No.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
thank you. All right. Last but not least,
IT,
IT.
or do you want to hear from community media?
Let's do either one. You guys can
Either one.
flip a coin over it. And
I'll
I think
go- I'll go-
technically,
What's that?
community media is underneath you, right?
Right.
Okay, so,
Yeah, but I brought Andy in just in case.
Okay.
We're going to take him tonight.
sounds good, however you want to do it.
All
Thanks,
right.
Paul.
So, for the budget process this year, kind of being new, getting my arms wrapped around everything, I decided to kind of try to keep everything static from the last couple of years and this year. So there's not a lot of increases or decreases outside of what I've seen kind of in the ebb and flow over the last few years. A couple things I did put in for, there was an increase in contracted computer support. There's a couple different projects that I would like to complete in the next year. It's either one or the other, kind of a audit of our network security and all of our policies and all that good stuff. And it's kind of some of the work that comes from that, or Office 365 migration. Neither of those products I feel comfortable doing in-house. Those are pretty big projects that are time consuming, and for the penetration test, I don't think we have the necessary training for some of that.
So is that through like an RMM or some consultant services?
Yep, right. Yep. I haven't reached out quite yet. There was some talk to do the the IT assessment this year. When I came in, I said I didn't find that necessary because there was enough apples that I could pick from standing on the ground that I didn't need someone to come and tell me that my house is dirty.
And I think the mayor brought something at one point, maybe even before you were hired, about an assessment, and I think we held off on it.
Yep.
Just, if I recall correct, Tim, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
if you
then-
recall, we
We
took some of the funds from the vacancy in that department and kind of carried those forward from the 18 budget into 19 to kind of for that assessment. But then obviously when we brought back and said, well, we might as well wait till
Wait till
Tyler's
now.
position
Yeah.
was filled by him, and then, you know,
He can
that, so
decide, yeah,
probably a good possibility that those funds will be then carried forward
for that. Perfect.
into 2020 to address some of the things that Tyler brought up, and that'll be in the private carryover resolution in April, our normal. So those funds are unspent at this point.
That sounds good. Are you, like on software licensing, and that seems to always be a big one, you good there, and,
Yeah,
Um,
as far as software licensing, you know, there wasn't a lot that that I've seen change in the last few years. So I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't have a full knowledge of every piece of software that we have. I do know that we're going through a Microsoft True Up this year, or it's coming up. That was kind of just landed on my plate in the last few weeks, or a couple weeks. So that price may fluctuate depending upon how many users that we've added and what Microsoft says. Usually the true ups are essentially you know you're telling them what the usage is, and as long as it's in the contracted amount, fine. But we just started that process this week, so and we look to complete that by next week. I also provided kind of a outlook of our what we currently have on our network and some of the installation dates and some of the when we purchased the equipment. So some of the things that we are sunsetting within this year. When I came on a few months ago, we made a large effort to replace all the Windows 7 operating system machines because that's end of life January 2020. So we had, I believe, around 70 PCs on the network. So we've purchased 20 this year, and we'll have to purchase another probably 20 next year to get the equipment refreshed and get the old off of our network.
wow.
We also are sunsetting 3 different servers this year, hopefully again by January, February 2020. With those replacements, we're using existing hardware to kind of duplicate what they were doing, so that those are just falling off the network. There are some needs with more storage outside of that.
Might seem to run into storage issues.
Yeah, we go through a lot of data in duplicating and trying to have a redundant data structure for our servers. Yeah, it's I believe the last count was over 50 terabytes worth of data that I had in my head that we're collectively using at the city. So
Wow.
yeah, what else did I have? Also I included in the sheets that I gave you some of our network equipment. That's this last page. Anything in yellow is coming up to end of life. Anything in red is needs to be replaced, which thankfully there's not a lot of that. And yeah. Any questions?
Well, I guess
So
I'll
far?
just throw out
Yep.
briefly what, like, more so, the mayor mentioned Granicus software. Where is that called out in the budget anywhere? I didn't see it listed anywhere, so.
No, I don't think it's specifically line item in there. I mean, we had talked, I think, at the initial budget meeting about the 15,000 being put into our software fund, that we kind of allocate that in there, and that's what kind of over the years paid for the Munis software, and so we like to kind of keep those consistent. That 15,000 could go into that, pay for any type of a Granicus if we decide to go that direction. But also, we're only in phase 2 of phase 4 of Munis implementation.
Well, and that was.
That would be
what
funds
I-
that might be used for, upgrading certain modules, or if we need additional training or implementation monies, that's what that's for, so.
Okay, and that was, my concern is that I don't want to leap into another software when we're still going through Munis. and
Right, and then if, you know, and just because we allocate 15,000 in a replacement account, the purchase of that still comes through the committee and council for approval, so it's,
yeah, I was just
unless it's
making sure.
line item specifically in there,
And I
then
didn't
a
wanna
lot
make
of
sure I
times it won't
didn't
come.
miss it.
Nope, it's not,
Okay.
I specifically identified, so if we were to go over that, it would come through the approval process.
And
Oh, yeah, I
for,
just-
for that project, what was the, can I ask, what was the concern with, was the concern in staffing and doing two projects, or was it just?
Correct.
Okay,
Definitely taken on, and then also I've been through Granicus presentations, and you know, my concern is making sure there's a user group and that group's meeting and deciding if that's the best. I don't want a software called out like this is, I don't want to chase our tail on a software
Sure.
without properly researching it through user groups and those kind of recommendations. I'm not against going to an agenda software. It's been how many years that we've chewed
Yep.
on this
Yeah.
for a very long time, and is that something I've been through many presentations by Granicus and endured the never-ending phone calls
Mhm.
and what they do, you know, and
Yep.
and I just don't want to jump into another software without having a users group put together and a decision kind of brought that way,
Sure.
you know, especially of the users.
Yeah, and, you know, and also I think we're still kind of trying to figure out that agenda referral process too, just how we want to do it before we, you know, so I mean, that still has to be kind of decided, has some standardization and.
We've, as you know, I've
Formality to
jumped
it.
into softwares in the past, and we've had,
Mhm.
you know, whether it be in code enforcement, community development,
Yep.
some of them that, you know, I just don't want to jump into another software without it being researched, and then, you know, everybody decided that that's the best one for us. And then the other concern was, you know, because obviously, because I think you're overseeing Munis now,
Mhm.
which is a good place for it, and you know, then adding additional software to oversee and implement along with those other things that you're taking on this year.
Sure.
And that's my only concern. I'm
Yeah,
not anti-Granicus or anti-software, but you know, I want to be realistic on what our expectations are of
Sure.
of staff to be able
Absolutely.
to
Yeah,
tackle.
the second phase of the Munis project, we kind of penciled in 7/1 for you know, a launch date on that, and then followed by whatever we determine the third phase is going to be. That's kind of a toss up right now. But yeah, as far as capacity goes to lead another project like that, I would, you know, for just personally, I would say that would be, you know, I don't want to be the bottleneck, you know, on implementing something like that. And implementing new software is a lot easier than implementing replacement software, right?
Yeah, doing a dual system.
Right, exactly. So a project like that might be a lot less tasking than a project like Munis, where it's touching everything.
That's true. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yep.
I'm not against it. I just want to make sure that we're being realistic.
Absolutely. Yep.
Financially, also when the price tag comes in, but.
Yep.
And then my only other issue is these Chromebooks.
Sure. Yeah.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
I think council is time for an update to at least a PC that has spell check. I
Yep.
think I think we've earned the ability to have spell check on our computers.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And I don't know how that would come through, but if you know, if that does come to pass, if you would like suggestions or something, or if I would like some research done.
Tim, I just want somebody allocated for new council PCs.
Yeah.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
Time to move away from the Chromebooks. Well, Scott, you want to keep yours?
No.
I was going to say, if the general consensus of council is we need something different, or people aren't using them because of their limitations, I think we can find the ability to replace them.
Yeah, you know, my feelings about Chromebooks.
Yeah, so.
But I mean, I guess the only thing is that we just want to make sure that what we do replace it would be compatible with any potential software down the line.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
if we would go to something like a Granicus, just make sure that they're
Mhm.
appropriate to, you know.
I'm a Windows, Microsoft OS kind of guy, so
Yeah.
getting away from Chromebooks is kind of up my alley as well. So.
So I know in the list of many things you have, I'd like see that one float up a little closer to the top. And,
And I think all the aldermen should be involved in looking through, let's see, you come up with 2 choices
Sure.
or 3 choices.
Yep.
But let everybody get their fingerprints on it in a sense.
Yep.
And their input rather than just 1 or 2.
Yep.
Because they might have a favorite here or there, so.
Sure.
And definitely a Microsoft guy myself. And yeah, these, like I said, if they can't even run word processing or spell check when we're sending out emails,
It's tough.
and the potential to be professional is
Sure.
is in jeopardy there.
Yep.
Computers. Otherwise, I don't have anything specific for
Okay.
Andy or Tyler. Andy.
Sure.
Go ahead, Andy.
Much like Tyler was saying, being fairly new, I'm trying to wrap my head around the budget that has been in place in previous years, and trying to determine the path forward with things. So I think really looking at the budget, what we did is to take a look at the ebb and flow of expenses and to determine where we need to make sure that we have things covered and look at any trends and things like that. So that's the general plan with the overall operating budget. Looking at outlay, I'm cognizant that there may be some requirements coming down the road with regards to closed captioning of government meetings. I'm involved with the state organization of Wisconsin Community Media, and so I know that different communities have had different approaches to closed captioning, and I think at the moment, I think the most probably the most conservative approach is to have some money budgeted in case the need arises, but not to jump into anything suddenly that a better solution may come along when here at the moment we're not absolutely required to implement it.
That's smart.
So I think looking at our outlay, we have some basic equipment and software planning in place so that if the need does arise, we can act on that. We have some money budgeted, but at least it's there and ready to go. As far as other capital outlay, I'm looking at a backup recorder for government meetings. The equipment we have in place right now is sort of like an all eggs in one basket type of situation, and we did have a scenario arise where there was a meeting that we unfortunately did not have a copy of. So looking at having a recorder in place so that we can have backups. So that's another item. And then just looking at general equipment for staff that's getting worn out essentially, and trying to keep things updated. So looking at some camera equipment and microphone systems, just maintenance with those types of things. But I think that's the overall overview of what we're looking at doing this year, and trying to determine the long-term approach also of what we need to be focusing on down the road in terms of where we need to focus our dollars. But I know that the top thing for me was having a plan for closed captioning. If that does come around, that's something we need to take care of.
It's good to be proactive. I know for me, obviously programming's, I look at your department about programming and there's a lot of people I enjoy watching, especially late nights and watching meetings. No, that sounds good.
Well, and it's an area that is always in change, and in the past, cable television was the central focus, but we realized that the audience is watching in many different platforms right now. So we have the online platforms, and we keep an eye on what where the shift is there, and making content available in multiple ways, for different audiences.
I'm surprised at the number of people that watch Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I hear that all the time.
Yep, that was the first thing I noticed kind of coming when I was doing research. You know, I watched a couple meetings and it was fantastic. You know, it's just well done, and
I agree.
it's a good value add. So
I know a long time ago, I won't dig too far in the past, but there wasn't, I don't know if it's still in operation, a connection between us and Water and Light and backups and, remember that, Tim? Is that still in existence?
So-
The connection between us and Water and Light and doing backups?
we do have
We
a
do that?
connection there.
Oh, okay.
We have a WAN connection to Water and Light that was to be used for backup purposes. I do not believe that it's currently being used for for that purpose. And also with that WAN connection that we have to Water and Light Commission, I don't believe we have a big enough pipe currently to handle the sheer amount of
The terabytes now that we have.
of data that we need to offload. So we are, you know, I'm in the guts of that, of trying to figure out a better method that's more cost effective to get offsite backups and more secure backups. You know, what we've done some research on is using Amazon cold storage for some of it, using a combination of Google Drive, Amazon cold storage, and local NAS. So yeah, so currently it's part of my discovery. It's whoa, and then I'm kind of starting to get traction now. So
Well, hopefully this process wasn't too painful. I think I recognize, and I'm sure you do from your background, is that technology is very important, and I think we need to stay on top of that and making sure, you know, obviously we have a good secure system, and then that you have enough resources available to keep up on the technology end of it. And so hopefully it wasn't too painful for you, gentlemen.
no, it was more painful worrying about it.
There's no blind sides here. It's just want to give you an opportunity to talk about your budget and anything coming about, and it gives us a little opportunity to express any of our wants, like new computers and
No more Chromebooks?
no more Chromebooks.
Well,
If I didn't make that any obvious, sure.
yeah. You sure you don't want a new version of a Chromebook?
I'm even sure of that. I'll
Yeah,
take a Microsoft version, something, but with spell check. But otherwise, I have nothing, and
I should just mention too that we have a couple of new staff members in community media, and they've been doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
And,
that's right, because Jesse retired.
Jesse retired, and Travis moved on to PD.
Oh, yeah, PD, yeah.
Right. And so our two other guys there have been doing a very good job, and you know, I'm excited. We have a lot of new ideas being developed.
Yeah,
And
nice team.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Very
retirement
good.
and change brings about new ideas.
and that's what we've been discussing, Andy and myself, the last few months is, you know, we're new, you know, so if there's something that's not quite working or not quite right, build new, you know, like this is the opportunity that we have to really self-promote the department, self-promote Wisconsin Rapids, and find vehicles and to do that with, you know, social media, if that's, you know, just
You find that we're more apt to work with you than to be against you.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not looking for an adversarial relationship, or we're here to support it, because obviously it's our constituents that are benefiting from a good community media and good technology, and we need to keep fostering that.
Yeah.
So we're here to help.
awesome.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else? All right, Tim? Anything from you?
Just a few.
I don't know of any other budgets that we really need to go through. Most of them are
No, there's
smaller,
just,
straightforward.
there's a couple updates. I know I wanted to kind of note. You know, we have office equipment. You know, we always put money aside for that stuff,
yep.
and I know that the Lowell Center's looking for getting some new furniture over there because that stuff is pretty dated and needs to be replaced. And
Okay.
I do believe Raska over there is said that they'd commit $8,000 towards the purchase of that. So I know Joan Krenig has an older quote, and I'm gonna have her update that one and maybe get a second quote and either bring that back to December, January.
So is that gonna be
Funds.
out of this year's budget or put into next year's budget?
it depends on when we get it done.
Okay.
If it goes in January, it'd be probably part of the carryover funds of that equipment replacement. I just wanted to make you guys aware of
Okay.
that.
I appreciate that.
And then I know HR just the other day expressed interest in some stand-up desks for their department, and so that would come out of the same thing. So
Yeah, I think that's
I
just
told them to
a
kind of look
common
at what
thing
they're.
now.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of pushing for that when we got all stuff that it was mandatory that they get
Yeah.
that, so
Right.
you have the
exactly,
option.
Right.
You know, so when you have turnover, people want it, have it, but
If you don't want
unfortunately,
it,
so
then you leave it down.
they're gonna look at getting some of that stuff done, but that isn't specifically lined up in the budget. I just wanted to make you aware that those came up. Also, I don't know if we ever talked about the stormwater utility fee.
No, we did not.
Okay, and we're proposing to raise that by $2 per residential unit. So it'd be an increase of $2.04. And basically that would generate about $50,000, and that would go to offset the amount of money that we're borrowing for storm sewer utility construction projects. And basically what we're trying to do there is get the stormwater utility, which pays for street sweeping, storm sewer drain maintenance, the administration and construction of storm sewer and retention ponds. And eventually at some point we want the fee to fund all those activities. So we're kind of gradually over time increasing that fee to absorb those into that fee. And this is just that one. Last year we raised it $2. This year we're proposing that we're going to raise it another $2, which should be about your normal resident is assessed 1 unit, so it'd be about 17 cents per month on their utility bill is what the $2 per year would equate. So just
And then how's that passed on to businesses based on surface area or?
right. So obviously the more impervious surface area you have, parking lots and things, obviously you get assessed more. So
And engineering figures that out through GIS and.
yeah, well, when we established the utility,
Yeah, go through
that
that.
analysis was done.
Okay.
And then basically for any new construction, obviously then they do,
Okay.
you know, they must do it through GIS and just kind of look at that, you know, impervious surface.
How many years would it take to,
I was gonna say it becomes self-sufficient.
just curiosity?
Well, right now we got about $200,000 on the proposed bond issue for storm, but it's a down year. So, you know, I would say probably another 5 to 10 years. That depending on, you know, it also is contingent upon what changes with the DNR and some of the regulations. If you remember, when we created this fund way back, is when we had to dig and construct all those detention ponds,
Oh, yeah.
retention ponds, and things like that, because you have to get a certain amount of credits, you know, for your plan and stuff like that.
So how much is it per year now?
It's $35 per year,
And we're gonna raise it to,
$37.08.
okay, and how much per year would it cost for 1 unit to be self-sufficient? If we're doing it right now? What would it
Well,
roughly cost,
if you figure 200,000, we probably have to raise about $8 this year to cover what we have in this year's budget. But like I said, storm sewer construction's a little bit down this year. Last year was 480-some thousand. This year it's like 200. And
so we're closing that gap.
right.
being-
And
okay.
I mean that's kind of the plan is to get that self-sustaining in that, and so then we don't have to borrow for storm sewer construction. We'll actually pay back in the future because the less you have to borrow, the less interest now you're paying on that money. So there's an offset there to the taxpayer, and that future interest costs will be down.
Right.
So I just want to kind of make you guys aware of that.
At least we're making it gradual rather than.
Yeah, that's the plan. So it's not just
Right.
you know, I mean, for the resident, it's not as big of an
Yeah.
impact, but you know, we're causing up the commercial manufacturing too that are assessed more than one residential unit.
Especially ones that have very large surface areas with
Right.
parking lots. And
Right. And there's things that they can do too to mitigate that
They have
on
their own
site.
stormwater.
Yep.
That's
So
right,
they
their
get
own
credits
pond.
for that. So
Think about
it's like a Home Depot, they have that one.
Walmart,
They, you know, they get a credit for that. So I don't understand the philosophy behind how you get the credit, but engineering does. That's all it counts.
Okay.
So, and then obviously you saw in this document, just kind of, I think, basically the tax rate information is pretty much all finalized. So
For the reduction in,
the only thing that we don't have is the state tax credit because that comes at the beginning of December, and that's based on the school levies over a number of years. So we don't have that yet, but we have the county school, state, and city tax rate as it stands in the budget now. So looking overall, about a 1.8% increase in the overall city tax rate that would encompass all taxing jurisdictions.
But this, and it's very important the public understands that that's all, but our city portion that we pay for our services is
2.3%, 27 cents per thousand.
Yeah, it's a little bit less than the others.
And then obviously the other thing is the bond issue that's proposed in the budget of 5.775. And that's basically to cover three different things. Obviously the major one is the aquatics, and that's assuming that,
and that's
you know,
4 million in itself.
4.1 million. We got, I think, over 1.2 million for our public works construction fund projects.
Oh,
Let me get
and
that.
those, you know, those, I would say make sense because that,
Yeah.
we'll have those paid off long before
Yeah,
the life of the road needs to be.
basically
replaced.
1.2, but that might be a little bit less if the resolution for the stormwater fee is approved, then that'll decrease by $50,000.
Oh.
And then we have 400,000 in there for the Batelco development for tax incremental district number 9. So that's 400,000 to construct the rail spur across 48th Avenue.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
48th Street, or should not Avenue, 48th Street. But that'll be repaid through increment generated by that project. So, other than that, I can't think of anything else that.
I can't either of any surprises.
Oh, no. I just want
Any other budgets, I don't think there's anything
They
to
went
do.
through all of them, so.
Yeah, all the big ones, you know, they're small ones, but
Right.
I think those are.
Right. And like I said, you know,
Self-explanatory.
we adopt this, but then we also do our carryover resolution in the spring for any unspent funds for projects, because I know like Chase Street and things like that, they're not gonna finish the project, so we'll carry those over. But that'll be done in the spring for that.
I guess the
And
big
then-
one for me is the fire departments and seeing how
But-
that,
We have a meeting next week
okay,
with 5 Bugles.
good.
So we'll get a little bit more clarity on what they're proposing and what the potential costs might be on that.
Well, and for the
So-
people that might be watching, when is the hearing for this?
This will be at the November 19th council meeting.
Okay, it's a third.
Yeah, next week, a week from today, actually,
Yeah.
on the 19th.
Yeah,
Just so
next Tuesday.
people can show
Yeah.
up if they have a concern.
So, but, other than that, I can't think of anything else that.
Okay, I can't either.
Like I said, any questions? And I'll do my final edit. I always like to double check my work. I've been known to transpose a number.
You don't sneak any bugs in.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully it goes in the right.
Not to backtrack completely, but just for our budgeting purposes, and maybe it was
Can I talk
talked
to you,
about at
Taylor,
a
a
previous meeting, but is the committee's plan to provide 70% of the room tax to the CVB still as the tourism entity of Wisconsin Rapids? Is that the plan?
Yes.
That's my plan. You know, obviously everyone saw the legal calculation. Next year's kind of a spike year, but unless the committee says otherwise, I always go on the assumption that it'll be 70%.
Okay, and so we can base our budget based off your estimates
unless-
on the.
You know, and I think it's something that I've discussed in the past is that we do kind of like a more formal contract that lays all that out so both parties knows exactly, it doesn't have to be a complex contract, but just says that, enumerates that, it's approved by council, you guys know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just helps us
Yep,
on our budgeting.
absolutely.
Because we're tailing off your budgeting into, to
Mhm.
do our next year's budget. So,
Yeah, and obviously this year has been a good year for room tax.
Yeah, well, one of our properties was down a little bit last
Mhm.
year, so,
There was a
took a
flood,
hit.
so it
And,
was out for almost a whole year.
and so it's bounced back
Yeah, 'cause I
and
think-
brought a lot of events in and,
Yeah, because I think the room tax is about 408,000 this year.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough
Mhm.
the work you guys do and the importance of that role. And
I'm not
I
sure.
couldn't imagine myself ever being in favor of reducing that 70%.
Yeah, I mean,
I think by
it's
statute.
it's
you
put
are
to
the
good
first-
use, obviously, we're always,
Mhm.
the ladies work really hard, everybody else, all the board members are volunteer, but,
Mhm.
they work their tail off to get things like BMX national event, World Water Ski Show last year, we worked really hard with.
Well, I don't know if everybody understands, but you sometimes front some costs to bring them here,
Mhm.
substantial costs that
Yeah,
Fees,
bidding
room tax,
fees
what-
for sports event,
Yeah, bidding fees.
we also work on getting grant money from the state to help with the BMX event, that we brought in and.
The entrance
Things like
signs, I
that.
do believe you helped with.
Yeah.
The entrance signs,
The
the
welcome
city.
signs
Yep.
was a big
The entrance, that was,
project for us,
14.3 last
to
year.
try to improve the aesthetics, you know, you guys talking about the aesthetics of parks and stuff, that's big for tourists that come to town, we want them to see, you know, the
Absolutely.
beauty of the area, not only our natural resources, but what's within our
Yeah,
resources. So,
But I always say if we have it, we need to maintain it and make sure it looks good.
yeah, absolutely, total agreement with that. So,
Perfect.
just
Well,
wanted to
I was
make
hoping-
sure so that we could go ahead with our budgeting process here. This is
Yeah,
our
and I do
fault.
like Tim's thought about, having a contract where it's spelled out that it's just 70% and this is
Yeah.
our tourism organization.
Yep.
And then you won't have to worry year to year or wonder.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely, you know, that's greatly appreciated.
Now, Meredith, we get monthly payments from the city, or how do we? do it?
Quarterly, and they're the second month after the end of the quarter, so we just got,
Just,
I got a
just
check.
issued the check.
I got a
think
check in
last
the
week or
mail
the week
that I
before.
haven't opened yet, so.
Okay.
That's one of the bigger ones. I had to
So-
double check that. I
Okay,
saw that.
well,
And I'm
I
like,
will
wait a
have to
minute
open it then.
here. And I'm like, oh yeah, room taxes.
I will have to open it.
So yeah, I mean it's I think it's about
Third
100 some
quarter,
thousand.
summer typically is our peak, although statewide, we don't really drop as a state much in the winter because there's a whole new set of things to do in the winter too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, like I said, the more we can fill our motels and hotels,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, you know, too, another thing that, we've been talking to some of the other local municipalities on is them putting in ordinance for things like Airbnb or VRBO, properties to collect tax as well, cause we do the surrounding areas as well, and, you know, I'm not sure if the city really looks at the ones that are within the city,
Tim, and there's-
to, you know, that was the
I definitely
discussion
think
that we've
that-
been having with, you know, the other surrounding communities so that we can, you know, cause we do service them with the natural resources with the lakes.
yeah,
Snowmobiling, ATV, bike trail, all that kind of stuff.
and I agree, cause I think those are revenue sources that need to be captured,
Yep.
especially, I don't know, for fair and consistent, and it needs to be a level playing field, and so if we're collecting from, one group, we need to be collecting from them all.
Yeah.
There's state legislation now for lodging marketplaces, so online travel platforms, needing to reimburse municipalities that have room tax on the floor, so.
Yeah, and I
if
know,
you need, I can come.
you know, we've had discussion that, you know, Airbnb came out that they were, you know, it's possible that they're gonna collect that tax up front, and as long as they know where it's supposed to be sent, they'll go ahead and send that to the
That
municipality.
makes sense at that.
So it's just a matter of, the municipality notifying them that this is where these room taxes go.
Yeah, every dollar.
Whether it's funneled through the state and the municipality, I don't know exactly how that's gonna work.
Yeah, I think it's in legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah, every dollar.
But thank you guys again for giving us the opportunity. And obviously, some of the people with questions maybe weren't here today, but we're more than
Yeah, I'm
happy
gonna
to
give
sit
these
down
two to
with them.
Tim for Steve and.
Or if you want to email it.
I can.
Yeah, we can just email it
Should
to
I
all the
email it?
older
Oh, there
persons.
you
How
go.
about that?
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
if you want to email it to me, or if you want
I can
to.
email it.
Yeah, and
If you
they're
wanna
all,
do
they're all
that,
listed.
yeah, maybe you
on
should
it,
just
right?
email it to all the older persons. This is what I presented.
In,
and that
in
way-
discussion,
Tim,
and
what did I
Scott
talk
knows
about?
this because we've had this
I
discussion
forgot.
at our last board meeting that we think it would be a
Older
good
persons
thing maybe
accept.
twice a year to get on the council agenda and do a state of the tourism
Just to-
type of address to keep the whole council
I like that.
abreast of what's going on, similar to what we did with you guys, maybe a little bit more in depth on, you know, this is what we brought in the past
Maybe
6
highlight
months and highlight
I like that idea.
areas so that all the council members are, you know, kept abreast of where we're at, what's going on.
You might come up with,
Maybe we can reduce that stigma of the community that's watching as well, that, to have a better understanding of what the CBB
What's
does
the important
and
role
what
of
it's
it
good
for
for the community and things like that as well.
maybe there's certain months will be more advantageous. Like, for example, in the fall after the summer. And maybe,
Yeah, we
you know
were-
what I mean?
We were thinking before
Spring.
summer and after summer, you know,
Yeah,
maybe,
something like that.
you know,
Spring.
yeah,
Just-
maybe March and September or,
And keep
you know,
it
April
consistent
and
that way.
October, you know, make sure, you know, kind of biannually,
That's a great idea.
so. Definitely a project that we're working on, so.
Of course we have.
Be supportive.
Sounds good.
Chromebooks, I can't.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Any further business for the committee?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
One
opposed?
motion now.
Uh,
Aye.
yeah, Kellogg moved and I seconded it.